It's just unbelievable. And these families deserve our help, and they deserve our respect. And I am tired of hearing about families that feel like they cannot hold their head up in public because their neighbors, their community won't look them in the face because their son or daughter didn't die in the war. Ooh, no, they were murdered, or they killed themselves, or whatever it is that, you know, coming out there. They get isolated within their own communities.
I just want to say how much I appreciate your coming on the show and doing everything you can to expose these horrific events in the military. It's a cancer on this nation, and something has to be done about it. And I'm very grateful to you for your part in trying to bring the truth to the American people.
No, thank you.
This is Jim Fetzer, your host on The Real Deal. I must say that for me, this has been an excruciating experience. I'm a former Marine Corps officer. I believe in my country. I've known a lot of good men in the Marine Corps and out. And listening to story after story of the abuse, the rape, the robbery, the murder, often brutal, of fine young men and women in our armed forces is disgusting to me. And in addition, of course, when recruiters are given bonuses and benefits for the number of recruits they make, that's independent of quality. There should be no kind of benefit for recruitment. Recruiters should be paid the same whether they recruit 0 or whether they recruit 100 a day. It should make no difference. The military has to have standards, because we're taking people who belong to gangs outside of the military and putting them in the military and giving them training that makes them even more efficient at killing, and they can reconstitute gangs inside the military, as is evident has been done in multiple of these cases. When you have a young woman like Lavina Johnson who goes to a PX. She's going out for a jog, and she goes to a PX, and she gets like M&Ms. And the next thing you know, she has been found in a tent, in a contractor's tent, and there's a bench on top of her, and she's been brutalized, and evidently she's been raped, and there's been a caustic substance poured on her vagina, and she has had a bench put over her, and her shoulders are dislocated, and her neck is broken, and this is supposed to be a suicide? What could be more blatant than the callous disregard of responsibility of the American military in a case like this? It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And the military wants to cover it up because they don't want to discourage recruitment. They don't want to discourage recruitment so the United States can continue to perform its acts of illegal warfare in Iraq and Afghanistan, laws that are in violation of international law, wars in violation of international law, the UN Charter, the U.S. Constitution. What has happened to us as a nation that we're going to abdicate responsibility for subjecting our own children to risk in order to make sure that the nation only ever goes to war when it's legitimate and when everyone is dedicated, when we're being lied to and manipulated by our government? Bush and Chaney will go down as the most corrupt administration, the leaders of the most corrupt administration in American history. They have brought us these corrupt wars, which were really being fought for the sake of oil, natural resources in Iraq, and for the sake of Israel by weakening the most sophisticated Arab state that had a wonderful health care system, universal education, functional infrastructure, quality of artifacts, art, history, a history that dates back thousands and thousands of years, including, of course, the Tigris-Euphrates Valley, the home of the mythical Garden of Eden, which we're covering with depleted uranium. We're making uninhabitable for the depleted uranium has a half-life of 4.5 billion years. I mean, what's happened to this country? If we only have a voluntary force, we must restore a draft that makes every young man and young woman in the country eligible. It can be a form of national service where you have the opportunity to serve domestically in a form of or abroad in a form of the Peace Corps, or some AmeriCorps or what have you, or a military option, but where everyone has to be eligible to serve. In fact, everyone should be required to serve. I would say if everyone were required to serve, probably tours of duty would be limited to as little as 2 years of national service, and then everyone could get on with their life. And we can benefit those who serve by supplementing their education. Make it a requirement that everyone who serves has to have graduated from high school, serve 2 years, and then get them back to college or technical school or whatever with federal assistance in education. And then we'll have a much better, more vibrant, we'll have a better, more wholesome military. You need young men and women of good character to serve in the military. The responsibilities are so great. This involves life and death. We're not going over there to commit murder and mayhem and rape and pillaging, but that appears to be what has happened time and time and time and time and time and time again. We must confront the responsibility we all share as citizens of the United States. We must do everything we can to ensure that our country is of the moral character to which we, in terms of our ideals, aspire. We can not allow this country to become corrupt and decrepit and decayed. This is completely disgusting. I must say, in terms of listening to these interviews, talking with these parents, I have seldom in my life ever felt such a sense of revulsion and the irresponsibility of the officers and the criminal investigative divisions of the military here. I mean, Lavina Johnson was obviously raped and murdered. Obviously raped and murdered. She was physically incapable of committing suicide. Physically incapable of committing suicide. And every other one of these cases displays circumstances and physical evidence that contradicts the official finding. This is bizarre. This is bizarre. And I mean, I just say we have a responsibility as a nation to face up to how we conduct ourselves, how we lead our lives, how we raise our children, our nation and its role in the world. And nothing is more important than the way in which our military serves the interests of the nation, and allowing it to become corrupt and perverted and distorted by lowlifes and petty criminals and emotional and mental misfits who belong in institutions, not in the military. They don't deserve our training. We are going to be haunted by the policies of the past 8 years for the indefinite future. Probably 20 years into the future, we're going to be paying for the misconceptions and the pathetic decisions, many motivated by ideology, the idea of using American military power to create a world power, dominate the world because the Soviet Union no longer existed as a superpower. This is the vision of people like Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld and Donald Feith and Richard Pearl, who didn't serve in the military. They don't understand the responsibilities. They don't understand the risks involved. And some of the eggheads on the right. It's all terrible. It's all terrible. In fact, it's terrifying if you face up to it. I say thank God for people like each of the parents of these children, of these young men and young women, for being willing to speak up and speak out about their individual cases. This is absolutely stunning stuff. And to Patty Woodward for creating an organization that's devoted to this. And to every one of these young men and women, Vicki Van Horn for talking about her son Jason in the military. And my God, I mean, this is traumatizing even for me. In Cilla's discussion of this young man who was so brutally murdered, Richard Davis, and case after case after case, Benjamin Grago, unbelievable. I say, Americans, think about your country, what you want for your country, what you want for your children, what you believe in, which is supposed to have something to do with goodness and right action and moral leadership, because our own military is failing us miserably. miserably. This is Jim Fetzer, your host on The Real Deal. Thank you for listening.